So for brands that aren't profitable on first order, and I know you work with a couple that actually, some brands do an incredible job at it. The reason why I don't recommend that your average D2C owner goes and starts a brand that's reliant on second purchase or third purchase profitability, and I was actually talking to someone about this on a consulting call today, and they just took on a client who's in this exact instance. So they sell a $60 consumable product that's reliant on repeat purchases because they have CM2 of $20 on that order. So they need a CAC below $20 to be profitable, which just is not happening on a startup new brand unless everything is absolutely dialed in, which it simply won't be. And so unless you have everything absolutely dialed in and you're really, really sophisticated within e-com, and you have the ability to raise capital as well to fuel initial customer acquisition, it doesn't make sense to play such a risky game when you can build a foundational business that makes the cash flows up front. And then later down the line, you can look into a business that's reliant on repeat purchasability. The reason why I even wanted to talk about not being profitable on first purchase and talk about this kind of businesses is because there's a huge opportunity in them. And there's a huge opportunity because 99% of people aren't able to do it. They don't have the sophistication to be able to pull off a business that's reliant on second and third purchases. And so because everyone fails at it so much, if you have someone that's a really strong operator and knows exactly what they're doing, they can come in and just crush. But it's reliant on a bunch of things, which is what I want to talk about. The first one being really knowing your numbers, but more importantly, because everyone says know your numbers, and what does that even mean? It's more so understand the data that informs the metrics that you're going to baseline everything against. And so rather than looking at average order value or returning customer rates or even total sales in Shopify, getting an understanding for average order value can actually be delineated into returning and first order. Average order value is also a function of average unit retail, UPT, discounts, return rates. The returning customer rate, it's really not an informative metric to make strategical decisions. And so breaking that out into a cohort analysis that goes down to the contribution margin level to get an understanding of how cohorts are changing and when you're getting drop off and how you can curate a strategy around that. It's getting the deeper understanding on every single baseline metric and the data that's aggregated to give you those metrics. That's the level that you need to be operating at to be able to be scaling a company that's not profitable on first order, and that you need to be ensuring second or third order profitability, because you're taking a huge risk with not being profitable on first order. If there was an economic swing or a macro change that suddenly caused your entire cohort to not buy in the next 30 to 60 days, you've just taken an enormous loss on acquiring that cohort that then doesn't go through and actually become profitable.
Yep. That's a perfect summary. Honestly, nothing really to add to that. Yeah, and yeah, the only thing I would add to that is gotta understand the inputs to evoke change on the output side. And lots of brands are not really following that thinking. Like you mentioned, AOV is an output, and the inputs are, units per transactions, retail price, discount given. Once you understand that it's all about the inputs because you have control over inputs, then you can measure outputs. But lots of brands only measure outputs without understanding the inputs. And that's where they fail. And that's why they are unable to play with the economics and grow as quickly as they want and hit the desired profitability and liquidity targets. And I think that's the reason why so many businesses fail within 5 years, because they just don't understand the game and how to play it.
Yep. If you had an e-com operator approach you and they said, I'm about to start a business, which is a $60 AOV, it's a consumable product, it's going to be reliant on subscriptions and repeat purchases, what core metrics would you be telling them that they should be tracking on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis?
Yeah. The first one is, of course, the lifetime contribution margin to customer acquisition cost within 30 days. So how much do you actually lose in that 30 days? That's number one metric. If, let's say, if it's below 1 lifetime contribution margin to CAC within 30 days, it means you're losing money on the first purchase. You got to understand how much exactly you're losing. Then I look at churn rate, right? How many customers are actually churning out of your product? If it's above 90% after that 30 days, that's a huge concern, right? So you probably have a product issue, product quality issue. And you got to dive into that before you start scaling the spend, because otherwise you're going to lose money on that spend at acquisition. And then you are not really repeating customers back. They're churning. So you're losing money even at repeat level, right? And that's not really good for the business. And then, of course, if the churn rate is not as high as 90%, if it's, way below that, you're looking at 50%, for example, then, of course, I would look at ways to optimize, go back and optimize the first 30 days. And how can we do that? So we'll look at, the gross margin, contribution margin. Can we add another product, collect some data from customers, see what else they need, and what can we cross-sell within that 30 days to push their 30-day contribution margin up, and basically boost that LTCM to CAC, 30-day LTCM to CAC above 1, so that we turn profitable on that first purchase. So I would say that these would be the core three. The first one is LTCM to CAC within 30 days, churn rate within 30, 60, 90 days, 180 days. So track the windows and understand how many customers you're churning over months, and then gross margin within that 30 days, of course. Repeat is not as important. 30-day gross margin would be the most important.